Have you ever had a Sunday morning when you felt like sleeping in? Barely got time to get to church before the service begins. You fight off the temptation to just stay home in bed. And you hear the music playing, you thank the Lord you did. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
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 Well, preach that sermon, preacher, and bless us with your words. Lift us up with Spirit's wisdom like we've never heard. There is just one presence, and it's strong in us today. In this place of unity, to learn, to share, to pray. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
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 Well, there's a mighty power in that little word. So don't be shy. Testify to the truth you've heard. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
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 When you feel your burden is more than you can bear, never underestimate the power of prayer. Faith can move a mountain or calm an angry sea. There's no limit to this, we know, as long as we believe. There is just one power,
Amen.
and one presence too.
Amen.
It's inside of me.
Amen.
It's inside of you.
Amen.
Can I get an amen?
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 Amen.
Oh, can I get an amen? Good morning.
Amen.
Let's try again. Now I'm on. I'm ready. Amen. I hope y'all had a great weekend. I have had a good time. Paul Hasselbeck has been in rare form this weekend, and we've loved you. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. He'll be presenting for us today, and if he just gives you a fraction of what we got this weekend, you're going to leave cross-eyed, I think. No. Yeah. You're going to love it. I've enjoyed my time. I enjoy that I get to be challenged, and that, to me, that's what Paul does. In a way that it allows me to decide what I get to be challenged about in some ways, whether I want to do something with it or not. And to me, that's our home and our community, is that sometimes we get to choose how we want to step up into our life, and it's, do we want to be challenged to find a new way, a new path, a better way of being, a more expansive, a more conscious way of approaching our life? And that's here at Unity of Little Rock. So thank you for coming this Sunday and participating and bringing your energy and your love and your light to be a part of this family. If this is your first time, make yourself comfortable. Know that this is a safe place and that we're glad you're here. And community is much more than what happens on Sunday, and there's ways to connect here. And one of the greatest ways to connect, if you look inside your bulletin, there's just a little information page. If you'd like to fill that out, you can drop that in the offering basket, but I'd offer, give it to one of our fine folks that are standing in the back right now, and they'll give you a packet of information. Or you can meet me in the community room after the service having a cup of coffee, and I'll give you one of those packs. And the best thing in it, it's got a coupon and a gift certificate, so you get parting gifts. Just our way of appreciating that you come and joined us today. Now, you get the opportunity to pass the peace. How do you pass peace? That can be a hug, that can be a handshake, that's saying hi to your neighbor. But also know that if you just want to sit and be reflective and allow that peace to build within you, that's perfectly acceptable here too. But here's your opportunity to pass your peace. Say hi to your neighbor.
Hey, neighbors. Wow, everybody took the cue. All right, this song we could use some help on if you sing it. I think a lot of you know it. I believe it's actually in the hymnal. I am free, I am limited. I'm going to do it twice. So if you don't pick it up our first time, just pick it up as soon as you figure it out. Sound good?
Sound good.
Sound good.
Sing along, everybody.
I am free, I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free, I am unlimited. Right now, right now. I am free, I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free, I am unlimited. Right now, right now. I am free, I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free, I am unlimited. Right now, right now. I am free, I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free, I am unlimited. Right now, right now.
Good morning, I'm Jeannie McGee. I'm the prayer chaplain today. This is a big weekend for prayer. Now, prayer's kind of an old-fashioned idea, but no, not in unity. In unity, it's affirmative prayer. And you know what? We've had a prayer chaplain program for just a little over a year. And if they're willing, I see some prayer chaplains out in the audience. Would you all be willing to stand for just a minute? I want everyone to see the people that have, yes. Now, we prayer chaplains, we're not just special or better than you guys. We just wanted to devote ourselves to learning more about affirmative prayer practice and then to pray with others. And there are many ways, if you join us, that you can serve as a prayer chaplain. And we really want to invite you all to consider that. In September, we may be doing another prayer training if there's interest. And then in November, we're going to go to Dallas to be with the Unity of Dallas Church. So you really might consider becoming a prayer chaplain. It's the heart of unity. And Russ, you sort of stole my thunder. We're talking about Paul, but it has been a wonderful weekend, hasn't it? Yes, indeed. Yeah, absolutely. And Mary Jane, you've added so much. I'm so glad that you're there. Plus, y'all, Mary, just to put a plug in for this afternoon, we've got plenty of food left, right? That's a reason enough to stay for the afternoon. So, well, at this time, let's have a moment of prayer. So, let's take a breath and become present to this sacred and welcoming space. Breathe in the welcome of our community. Release any separation that you might feel. I rejoice in this brand new day, this brand new, never before lived day. I turn my focus to my divine nature on this new day and all the spiritual potential that is available. Unfavorable limitations may appear. Well, they are merely expressions of our human consciousness cropping up as politics, world conflict, individual struggles. But prayer makes each of us master in the realm of our creative ideas. Each of us has authority in our own higher consciousness or lower consciousness. It's a choice. Take these truths in a brief moment of silence. What potential and creative ideas can you bring to your life today? We are grateful for this time to be present in this space and in this fellowship. We realize the spiritual truth of divine nature. I wisely use my divine potential to meet every challenge. I choose to express infinite possibilities in manifestations of well-being, peace, and abundance. May we all experience well-being, peace, and abundance. And so it is. I want to point to you the Christ candle. If that prayer didn't light up the Christ nature in you, here's a reminder, a symbol, and then let us say our statement of being together. I am an individualized expression of God. I am ever one with this perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance.
So I don't know exactly what Paul's talking about today, but I know he's here doing a workshop on prayer. And so this is a song about someone who is not very far along in their prayer process. My life's unraveled in so many ways. I cannot tell my nights from my days. It seems I've gotten in so deep. I'm finding it harder and harder to sleep. Harder and harder, harder and harder to sleep. Harder and harder and harder and harder to sleep. Although it seems a desperate play, I'm thinking I might try to pray. Yet if I do, what shall I say? It's getting harder and harder and harder to be this way. Harder and harder and harder to be this way. Do I get down on my knees like I did as a boy? My mother beside me, such comfort and joy, reciting those words as she taught me to say. I did this back then 'cause I felt like I had to. A obedient son had no cause to argue. I remember those words even to this day. Some of you know this prayer. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. I was just a baby boy trying to learn how to pray. Oh, I was just a baby boy trying to learn how to pray. I've wasted relationships, wasted time. I've lived a troubled life of crime. And all for what I do, and I know I'm thinking now it's all just been for show. It's getting harder and harder and harder to live this way. And harder and harder and harder to live this way. Is this really me about to pray? If so, perhaps a blessed day. These words that I speak seem weak, but they're all I can think to say. Oh Lord, just let me get some sleep. Release my troubles to the deep. I'd rather die than live this way. You take my soul, it'll be okay. I'm just an empty man trying to learn how to pray. Oh, I was just a baby boy trying to learn how to pray. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. I was just a baby boy trying to learn how to pray. Now I'm just an empty man, still trying to learn how to pray. I'm trying to learn how to pray. I'm trying to learn how to pray. Amen.
Paul Hasselbeck is going to share our message today. And I just wanted to say a few words because I could stand up here and talk about his rather wide, broad, deep credentials, but it's not his credentials that have touched me. Maybe that's what's helped shape him to make him the man and the being that shares such a spiritual consciousness with me in my life. But I wanted to just convey, I believe that all of us on a spiritual journey recognize that that's an ongoing journey, that we're always growing, always expanding, always looking for greater depth of understanding and conscious awareness. And Paul has touched me in that in my metaphysical understanding, my 12 powers based from Charles Fillmore, that understanding, and now I can add prayer to that list, but that I catch myself during my week sometimes saying things or thinking things that I know that came from my awareness and my experience with Paul. And to me, that's an incredible testament in my life. Because I have lots of information and lots of things that come into my life. But Paul helps me shape my spiritual growth. And I feel blessed to have this man in my life. So thank you, Paul. And I would love it if y'all would give him a warm, enthusiastic welcome to Paul Hasselbeck.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This lower one advances.
Hi, everybody. I can't tell. There we go. Yeah. Wow. Thank you for the music. Beautiful, beautiful. So that was an amazing song about prayer, wasn't it? Because, so it's like a wonderful juxtaposition because one of the ways we learn about unity prayer is juxtaposing it to traditional prayer. And that's the way I prayed when I was a kid. And I was sitting there, I hadn't been reminded, so this is like, thank you. I hadn't been reminded that I prayed those words, you know. A kid saying, if I should die before I wake, whoa! Certainly not a unity thought, is it? Yeah, and so as we go through life, we do get into those moments, don't we? And the issue isn't whether we get into those low moments or not. The issue becomes if we decide to stay there and kind of build a condominium and live there. In unity, we have tools. We have principles, we have laws, and ways in which to rise above what's happening in our lives so we can transform our lives, right? So all that negativity is raw material to grow. Are you with me? Okay, so one thing I like about coming here is friends are here. That's the number one thing. And actually, it's the friends that are here that makes the drive really worth it. And then I get to play here, and so that's good. And then, Russ, you don't know this, so Russ always gives me a topic I've never spoken on. So I get to stretch. See how we stretch each other? Yeah. And I guess we can say you're welcome and I'm sorry to each other, right? All right. So he asked me to talk what makes unity unity. And of course, this will be in my personal perception. In fact, whenever I'm teaching about prayer or metaphysics, I say it's unity metaphysics according to Paul. Okay, not the Apostle Paul, faux Paul. All right? I am not the Apostle Paul. Okay, so then I got to thinking, wow, this is not a simple topic because there's like layers. So I'm just going to, in 20 minutes or so, go through the layers, and hopefully you'll learn something as we go along. So what's the makeup of unity? So it's you, yous, y'all, and all you all. I see we're going to have a little bit of a slide challenge. I think I had this set up for a different dimension. Because the fact is, we wouldn't have a unity movement without you. And so in unity, all along, the individual has been primary in a way. And that concept of the individual has the right to choose is very, very important. And then kind of the next level are the churches. And to the individual, it's usually an individual church like this one, isn't it? And the individual churches are independent. Did you know that? So a lot of us grew up in religious traditions where the mother organization is the great controller and source, right? And in fact, the churches are required to give money to the mother organization, and sometimes the mother organization gives money to the church. Doesn't happen in unity. So the unity church, each individual one decides whether they want to tithe, give a free will love offering to the parent organizations. Are you with me? And so another thing that's really important for us to remember, so just take a moment and just feel where you're at in the seat. And if you can, think back to the time when you first came in these doors. How many had that feeling of I'm home when you came here the first time? Yeah. Would you like other people to have that feeling? Yes, so you know how that happens? Is by you asking friends to come here, and also the free will love offering you give at the end of the service. We often talk about giving our tithes because we received, and that's true. And for me, another level and a more important level is I'm giving it forward when I give it to a church like this. Making sure that it continues to exist so the next new person who walks through the door has the same opportunity I had and the same opportunity when you had. Were there any newcomers here? Great. So as an outsider, in a way, I open my heart to you and I welcome you, and I hope you create an experience for yourself that you realize the divine creature you really are. And then we have these two big organizations, UWM and UWH. We're always using acronyms. It's kind of our inside language, right? So let's look at those. So UWM is Unity Worldwide Ministries, and that's the organization that oversees the ministers and the ministries, and they provide all kinds of support. Most people don't know how much they support, and it's free will support. That's another thing. They're giving their support back to the churches as a gift to the churches. And then the sister organization, and by the way, they're both now on the same campus. Hooray. They used to be like 3 miles apart, so now they're in the same quarters, so to speak. So Unity World Headquarters does Silent Unity. How many of you have heard of Silent Unity? That's our massive prayer assistance, we could call it. Then we do publishing. How many of you heard of Daily Word? There's Daily Word, there's books, there's booklets, there's all kinds of wonderful things. And then Unity World Headquarters' mission, we could say, is to reach out to people who aren't Unity people. So sometimes our literature is more geared to people who aren't Unity people so that they can understand what we're doing. So what makes Unity Unity? What makes Unity Unity? The first thing that came to mind is we're welcoming and we're inclusive, right? We don't exclude anybody. And it varies a little bit by church to church because like each person is unique, each church is unique. But the idea is we're open and receptive to all people no matter what their belief system is. And those are all kind of fun words that I found on a slide. And I think all of those, so we could say, we maybe do not reach the ideal of those things. However, that is our underlying intention. So because we're open and receptive to all people and all beliefs in a way, as a movement, we fall in a category called New Thought. Have you heard that? Yeah, so that was developed in the late 1800s into the 1900s. And I believe we are still creating it. It's still evolving. It's still expanding as each individual grows and becomes aware of their own divinity. And to a certain degree, New Thought didn't make science the enemy. In a lot of churches and religions, science was the enemy. In New Thought, science helps show us ways in which the divine really is. Does that make sense? So a lot of our teachings arise up of how the physical universe operates, because that reflects how the spiritual universe. So we can get to know the physical universe. We have a clue about how the spiritual universe works. And in fact, one of the things Charles Fillmore said was, if you want to know how God mind works, look at how your mind works. Because the way your mind works is the way God mind works. And so that's New Thought, and sort of a weakness and a strength, because we're open and receptive of all people and all beliefs and thoughts. We could call us the Any Thought Will Do movement in a way. Right? Any belief will do. So my big deal about this is, yes, we can be open. Yes, receptive. Yes, supportive of each person. Yes, allowing each person to have the right to have their own belief system. And, by the way, we have this really good set of teachings you might be interested in. You with me? Okay. So, the next thing that comes to mind is, and what was really attractive to me is, there's no dogma in unity. There's no doctrine. We don't expect you to check your brain cell at the check room in the back as you come in. We expect you to come in with your intelligence, with your wisdom, with your understanding. And here's a couple things Charles Fillmore said. He said, this is in this book, The 12 Powers, a statement setting forth the teaching of a religious institution is essential. So it's essential for this church to set forth the teachings of unity while allowing you the freedom to believe what you believe. But compelling clauses should not be omitted. Okay, so we don't compel you to believe anything. And then he said this, unity has no dogmas nor creeds, nor are its students expected to believe anything which they cannot logically demonstrate to be true. A universal appeal to pure reason. So whatever I share from this platform, whatever Russ shares, whatever you read in the books, are sort of like knowledge offerings to you, teachings to you. And we're not saying you have to believe this. We want you to move beyond mere belief. We want you to to arrive at a point of understanding these teachings and proving them to yourself. Are you ready to do that at any level? Yeah. Okay. So, often we're asked in ministerial schools, so what is your elevator speech as someone says and realizes you're a Unity minister and you have to give them, you have that time between floors, okay? And that was, I have to tell you, that was very hard to do when I was in school. But as time gone by, it's gotten simpler. Unity is a spiritual philosophy I use to manifest a better me and a better life. Isn't that really what it boils down to? And hopefully that's enough of a teaser that someone then will ask a question. Well, tell me what the beliefs are, okay? So, we have lots and lots. And so I'm going to share with you the ones that I've used that have had the most impact on me, okay? Now, this is where I need to say, you can please some of the people some of the time, but you can't please all the people all the time. Now, it's also true, I cannot offend all the people all the time. Okay? So if what I'm teaching this morning or sharing with you offends you, I apologize in advance. And I'm also aware I'm not causing the offense. You're hearing it and you find it offensive. Make sense? Yeah, because that's going to point to something else very important as we come along to that unity is all about self-empowerment and self-responsibility. So this is a quote. We have co-founders in Unity, Myrtle and Charles Fillmore. Myrtle kind of got it golden, and Charles helped goose it up a little bit, okay? So this is what Myrtle said, God is principle. We are studying spiritual science to get a broader conception of God, rather than holding to the view that he is a personal being with parts like a man. I think she giggled when she wrote that. A being subject to change and capable of varying moods. That so describes the God of my childhood. Does that describe yours? I had a moody God. And my God was so moody, I had no way of predicting what he was going to do to me. And in fact, it seemed like sometimes when I was good, I got punished, and other times when I was bad, I got rewarded, and so that we called grace. That God could have punished me, but he decided not to, right? Did you have a moody God, right? And the thing is what I didn't realize when I was a kid, I realize now, that moody God of my understanding was totally undependable. And in fact, I had kind of a blind faith in that God's going to somehow take care of me, but boy, sure time didn't feel like that's what was happening. And then she goes on to say, though personal to each of us, God is it. Now, a lot of people cringe when they hear that pronoun. Neither male nor female, but principle. So what our New Thought founders did was they looked at science and saw that science had these utterly predictable, utterly reliable principles and laws that that's underneath physicality. And the same is true of our spirituality, that there are principles and laws that are the very foundation of what we are. And that it's not a male, it's not a being, it's not an entity, it's not a spirit in any way, shape, or form. But it is principle. And then Charles Fillmore, we often can read in his books, he's always frequently referring to God as mind. And so I kind of thought for a while that Myrtle had one name for God, principle, and Charles had another one, mind. But this is what he said. Mind, by the term mind, we mean God, the universal principle. So when Charles is using the word mind, his understanding of that was principle. And so really, when we're reading Charles, wherever we see the word mind or God mind, we ought to put in principle, because that's what he meant. And so we have really both our founders using the same concept of what God is. God is principle. And so you've probably heard of this one too, one power and one presence. Okay, so as I get into the teachings, the ones that were most attractive to me and I've used to fundamentally change my life, this is really important because that meant this, right? If there's one power and one presence, there cannot be a devil that's an opposing power. Now, I tell you, it was real convenient to blame it on the devil when I did something bad. The devil made me do it, you know. So when we say there's only one power, one presence, we mean it. And one of the ways we mean it is any power or presence you have must be that same power and presence. So now we're leading to that concept that now God is an outside. It's not inside and separate, but it's somehow inside and fundamentally the truth of our beingness. Okay? So this is what was said in Dynamics for Living. We have the privilege and freedom of using God's power as we will. When we misuse it, we bring about inharmonious conditions. These are called evil. I'd rather just call them error, not even use the old terminology. Evil or error appears in the world because we are not in spiritual understanding. We are not operating from our highest level of consciousness. And it's fixable. You see, if there was a separate power called the devil, it wouldn't be fixable. We can do away with evil by learning rightly to use the one power. If there were a power of evil, it could not be changed. That blew my mind when I first heard that there isn't this devil. This one is probably one of the most attractive to Unity folks. As a traditional Christian, I was told I was born a sinner, that I was innately bad. Anybody been taught that? Yeah, we got to let that one go, okay? So you, me, we're innately good. We are not victims of the world we see. Now, people can do things that victimize you. They can hurt you. You can have a car accident. A tornado could wreck your house, and you're victim of that, but you don't have to feel like a victim. And that's where the self-empowerment comes. So this is amazing. Unity teaches and encourages self-empowerment. Did you know that? Self-reliance and self-responsibility. Now, that's like good news and bad news, isn't it? Sometimes I just don't want to be self-reliant. Sometimes I don't want to be responsible. And sometimes I don't feel very powerful. And then, who's responsible for that? Me. There's no one else to blame it on. So then in this little quote, Charles Fillmore says something that was amazing when I first read it. The ego is the I. The ego is you, the ego is me. And by reason of your divinity, you make and remake as you will. Did you realize you're divine? That you're innately divine? Some days it may not feel that way. However, if we're aware that that might be the fundamental truth, we can start empowering that. Because friends, you do not get a strong life by empowering your weakest parts. Did you hear that? You don't get a strong life by empowering your weakest parts. And that's often what we do. And then we keep repeating that, expecting a different outcome. Won't work. So he goes on to say, and by reason of your divinity, because you are divine, you are making and remaking your life as you will. You choose. There isn't a God telling you how you're going to be. In this lie your greatest strength and your greatest weakness. That's pretty obvious, isn't it? And in fact, all the crap you're producing in your life, you're producing because you are divine. And you have free choice. It's also true of all the good. So when we say there's one power, this is something Charles said, there is but one power. We use it as we will. If you send it out in hate, it destroys. Have you noticed that? Or anger, or any negativity. But if we send it out in love, it builds. If we send that out in harmony, it builds. If we send it out in unity, it builds. So there are not two powers, but two ways of using power. And that's a simplification. There's a whole spectrum of the way you are using the one power and one presence. And I bet you, if you're like me, it's varying from moment to moment all during the day, isn't it? That's why self-awareness is so important to your spiritual expression. Because true change happens because self-awareness leads to self-knowledge. And the trick is, once you get to the self-knowledge, is not to condemn yourself for whatever you find. Know that is raw material for magnificent change. So here's a quote that when I first read it, I wanted to duck, thinking the lightning would strike me. God only does what man says he shall do. God is our servant. Did you ever think of that? That this wonderful Spirit of God, out of which everything is made, is here at all times, is always present with us, and we are using that God. Now, I'm going to reframe that for you in a minute, and I want to start with a little bit of story. So I was sitting in my office at Unity Village. It might be 8 years ago now, and I was sitting there wondering, why is it that we do not get the same great, consistent results in prayer that it seems like when we look at our founders that they did in their time? Have you ever wondered that? Yeah. And so I went to the librarian, his name was Eric. I said, Eric, what do you have early about prayer? And he found this 14-day conference that was offered at Unity when Unity was still downtown in Kansas City. This is the first healing conference that was ever given by Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. And in that very first lesson, I found this missing piece. What do I mean by that? By the time I was trained to pray the Unity way, the Unity prayer method had morphed. It was kind of like the telephone game, you know that, where sometimes that it starts here with one thing, and by 1993 or 94 when I was in school, it had morphed. It was still called affirmative prayer, but now it sounded like traditional prayer. It always started with addressing God. Well, if God is principle, it doesn't need to be addressed. And it always ended up with thanking God, with the assumption that in between there's an asking, a beseeching, a hoping that God's going to fix whatever you're asking for. Yeah? Okay? So all Unity had become in its prayer method is a more positive form of traditional prayer. If you come to the workshop, you'll see how different it's really supposed to be. And it's founded on this. Now, let me fix this for you. So remember, well, let me ask you, what was the name that Myrtle gave to God? Principle. What was the name Charles gave to God? Mind, which he interpreted as principle. So here's what we get. And now this makes infinite sense. That puts me in my embedded theology. Or when I read that, I put myself in my embedded theology. A God that's separate, that's male, an entity. Okay? And it's so sacrilegious, I would think God's going to punish me for saying it. I think I went the wrong way. There we go. Principle only does what man says principle shall do. Principle is our servant. Did you ever think of that? That this wonderful principle, out of which everything is made, is here at all times, is always present with us, and we are using that principle. Now that makes sense. In that sense, it's no different than our becoming aware of the principles and laws of mathematics or the principles and laws of gravity, and because we know what they are, we can use them consciously and more productively. Yes? Well, if it's true, if our premise is true that God is principle that we use according to law, then the same is true for our consciousness. This is the way we make ourselves better people and better lives, is being fully conscious of the principles that God is. And so those were the things, the teachings, that were most fundamental to me to making a shift from my embedded thought theology, the theology of my childhood, to today. Those are statements that I used for self-empowerment and to be self-reliant and to be self-responsible. Sure, I fall into times of victimhood, but the trick is not to stay there. After all, Jesus did too. Yes? Right there at the end, he was in victimhood. That isn't the bad thing. The bad thing is if you decide to stay there. So what's in store for you, for this church, and for the unity movement today and tomorrow? Well, for me, we have to first acknowledge that we are in a little bit of a contraction. We are getting smaller in membership, and we're getting smaller in the number of our churches. So we have to take personal responsibility for revitalizing the movement. And the only way we're going to do that, the best advertisement we have for what we have is ourselves. What I say, Russ is not responsible for getting the butts in the chairs, but he is responsible, plus his team, for keeping the butts in the chairs. And let me tell you, I travel to a lot of churches. For a church of this size, you have a lot happening. I go to churches that are huge and they're not live streaming. They might have one video screen but not two. So your technology sets you up to move forward in the world. I also think we have to wake up and realize that our roots are Christian, and we don't want to get rid of those roots, but that language turns people off. And because the Fillmores use those traditional terms with new meanings, a person walking through the door, when they hear the word Christ, they hear Jesus Christ. That's not what we mean in unity. And not many people know that Charles Fillmore defined the Christ as the idea that contains ideas. Here's another way to say it: the principle that contains all principles. So your minister might be saying the word Christ from the platform. You might be clued in to that as a jargon, but a newcomer thinks you're talking about Jesus. And so there's not a match. So I am enthusiastic about moving our teachings forward using clear and simple language that uses no jargon. Because I would rather have a newcomer reject unity because they truly understand what we're teaching, rather than reject us because they think they know what we're teaching. Are you with me? So we have a wonderful teaching. And in a way, we've been successful because we can find these teachings out in the general world, but no one does it better than we do. So what I would like you to do is just own your personal responsibility as actually a key person in the unity movement. Without you, we do not exist. And I am grateful you exist. Thank you for being here. are the subject authority at the point of your awareness. You are the one power in the present. So we're not meditating to make ourselves small before some imagined God on the throne. We are being in the fullness of our power in the present. So try it. Let's see how it feels. Deep breath. And if closing your eyes help, I often close my eyes so I'm not aware of what's around me, so I can more clearly focus on one power in the present, the truth of what I am. We call it God the good by having God is the very principle of benevolence and generosity. Right? And just like power, we get to choose how we use benevolence and how we use generosity. And just like power, we get to choose how we use benevolence and how we use generosity. And just like power, we get to choose how we use benevolence and how we use generosity. And just like power, we get to choose how we use benevolence and how we use generosity. And just like power, we get to choose how we use benevolence and how we use generosity. And just like power, we get to choose how we use benevolence and how we use generosity. And just like power, we get to choose how we use benevolence and how we use generosity. And just like power, we get to choose how we use benevolence and how we use generosity. And just like power, we get to choose how we use benevolence and how we use generosity. And just like power, we get to choose how we use benevolence and how we use generosity. And just like power, we get to choose how we use benevolence and how we use generosity. And just like power, we get to choose how we use benevolence and how we use generosity. And just like power, we get to choose how we use benevolence and how we use generosity. And just like power, we get to choose how we use benevolence and how we use generosity. And just like power, we get to choose how
When I go down in the river to pray, studying about the good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown? Oh Lord, show me the way. Oh sisters, let's go down, come on down. Oh sisters, let's go down in the river to pray. Hang on just a second, I think you guys have totally, I'm on the wrong key. You want to do that again? I'm so sorry, y'all. Okay, let's try this again. As I went down in the river to pray, studying about the good old way, and who shall wear that starry crown? Oh Lord, show me the way. Oh sisters, let's go down, come on down. Oh sisters, let's go down in the river to pray. As I went down in the river to pray, studying about the good old way, and who shall wear that robe and crown? Oh Lord, show me the way. Oh brothers, let's go down, come on down. Oh brothers, let's go down in the river to pray. As I went down in the river to pray, studying about the good old way, and who shall wear that starry crown? Oh Lord, show me the way. Oh fathers, let's go down, come on down. Oh fathers, let's go down in the river to pray. As I went down in the river to pray, studying about the good old way, and who shall wear that robe and crown? Oh Lord, show me the way. Oh mothers, let's go down, come on down. Oh mothers, let's go down in the river to pray.
Divine love as me, blesses and multiplies all I have, all I give, and all that I receive. There is more than enough in the universe that you created. There is more than enough on the planet of sacred design. There is more than enough for humanity. Why would I worry? Why would I doubt? Why should I ever think I'd go without? Why should I worry? Why should my soul. Know the truth. Whatever I choose to do, your infinite love will prove more than enough, more than enough, more than enough.
Thank y'all. Wonderful. Just a few quick announcements for us today. Songwriters Group is Wednesday, August 8th. WOW has moved to a new Saturday in the month. So they're now on the second Saturday of the month. So for y'all that want to come, and they occasionally let the fellas come. So I think we're left out again this month, but maybe another month. But y'all, as the women, the female, the women of power, get to step up and engage. And I hope you enjoy that, because I have enjoyed it every time I get to go, that they let the fellows come participate.
I think the fellows are allowed this time too.
Are we?
Yes. Everybody can come.
Okay. Well,
And since Amy's not
yay.
here, I'm just going to say that that's true.
Did-
Anyway,
So we're going to show up whether we were welcome or
That's
not. All right. Good. Oh, well, that's because, it's at Amy's.
It's the swimming
I forgot
bird.
that it's August. It's not here this month. It's at Amy Clark's home. If you haven't been to her home, you want to go just because you can look at her home and play in her pool. So this
And
will
me,
be
Molly.
a great party for us on that day. So now I understand why everybody's welcome. So please, all are welcome to that. Amy would love to have us in her home. She's been such a gracious host when I've been there. Our board member is always available in the community room afterwards, so if you'd like to ask questions, share thoughts, just want to visit with the board member, be available in the community room. As always, we ask that when we close today, that you vacate this room so our prayer chaplains have a place in which they can interact and dedicate prayer time, of which Jeannie will be our prayer chaplain today. And as you saw, we have other prayer chaplains in the room, but Jeannie will be up front and available for us. And I'd like to invite you, we've had a weekend with Paul, but Paul is inviting us to come and participate this afternoon from 1 to 4. So whether you've been to the rest of the weekend or not, you can come in and join in this afternoon, and you'll fit in perfectly. And as we mentioned earlier, Mary Jane intended to feed half of Little Rock, so there is ample food for us. So if you would like to stay after, and we'll treat this kind of a potluck experience and enjoy the food and stay right up to 1 o'clock when Paul begins. But no, all are welcome for that. Well, let's do our closing unity circle, please. Join us in our closing affirmation together. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love. The power of God protects us. I am the power. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as our Creator, family all are we. Let's walk with each other, perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me, and this See the moment now. Yes, I take this my joy now. Each moment and each moment be turning. Every peace I